Welcome back to the news at 10. Commercial flight cancellations and delays appear to be on the rise in Nigeria, and this may be linked to the lingering scarcity of aviation fuel. On the receiving end are passengers who've spoken of long hours spent at terminals over the past 3 days. Our aviation correspondent Bukola Jo Oketumbi reports.
This is the exterior of the Murtala Mohammed Airport 2, the terminal that is home to most of Nigeria's local airlines. At this time, our cameras are not allowed within the departure hall, but records reveal 4 departures out of Lagos, 3 delayed flights and 1 boarding. Most of the flights were due to depart later in the day. Away from this airport to the general aviation terminal where passengers are seen arriving and others are seated within the departure area. But suddenly, this outburst captured by our cameras. Altercations like this are now the order of the day as passengers struggle to make their flights in the face of aviation fuel scarcity. A top industry analyst around here says the situation is far from pleasant.
There is no availability. That's the problem now. There is no all these subsidiary boys, they are just doing PMS. When dollar goes up, fuel prices goes up. And deregulation is what is in vogue now, which we are very happy about. But then, if you deregulate, where do you get the dollars? No airline is licensed to import fuel on their own.
He insists foreign airlines now come in loaded with fuel to depart Nigeria.
Emirates is doing 21 flights into this country. So they fuel up all from their country and top up here because they are heavily subsidized. So the competitors are in a disadvantaged position because they have to buy. But here is an open field.
At the time of this report, records obtained from the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria show that 20 flights had departed from this terminal with 5 major delays. These passengers are on their way to Abuja and their flight has been pushed forward.
We're supposed to leave at 1 o'clock. We've been told it's going to be 3 o'clock now. We are hoping so.
Another passenger tells us his flight was timely.
I bought my ticket for 11 o'clock and we left at 11:05. So that's it. No delays, no hassles, nothing.
On the part of airlines, Arik Air has issued an alert over the non-availability of fuel to his passengers. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority in a recent statement asked airlines to be responsible and proactive about unnecessary delays. Bukola Jo Oketumbi, Channels Television News.
Joining me now to look at this situation is the Director, Consumer Protection, Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, Mr. Adamu Abdullahi. Thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you very much, Ujoma.
All right, fuel supply seems to be returning. I mean, even if it's at 145. Why is the story of aviation fuel different?
First of all, I must start by apologizing profusely to Nigerians, especially the flying public, over this, I would call it break in transmission, because really what happened took everybody by surprise. Even though there were creeping shortages beginning from sometime beginning of this year, but supply seemed to have improved. Now shortages are back again. You see, aviation fuel has been deregulated a long time ago, maybe 2 years ago or so, and every fuel supply is free to go to the market, get the dollars you need, and buy your aviation fuel, come and sell it to the airlines. But then the supply of dollars, as everybody knows, has failed of recent because there's paucity in the amount of dollars we have because of the fact that our production in petroleum products has failed, and the money we earn from oil has really gone down tremendously. So therefore, fuel marketers also have to go and queue like everybody else along in the CBN and look for dollars with which to go and buy these products. So the fuel is just not there. That is why we are facing these problems, because the supplies have not been made due to the fact that the dollar is not there. They are not ready to go to the black market to buy dollars, because if they do that, the cost of aviation fuel will go so high that flying would be a big problem for Nigeria. So for the meantime, I would say government is trying to ensure that we get this fuel as at when due.
But as a regulator, why has it taken you this long to come out and respond? As you said, it's been a lingering problem. And, you know, we have all manner of issues that the consumers are worried about. Let me just take a look at some of them. Being stranded for several hours, no information on flight cancellation, no refreshments. Many say no compensation, nothing to do with the hotel. What do the rules say about when it happens like that?
What you really first and foremost have to understand is how these things work. You see, almost everything in aviation is done on credit. So therefore, these airlines have arrangements with fuel marketers, and they sign deals that you supply us fuel. Every week they sit down, do a check and find out how much they owe and pay, so they now get more fuel for next week. So if by any chance your own supplier doesn't have fuel, then you have to start running around to look at other suppliers that may have fuel, and they would insist on cash payment. So all these delays that you see, the airline would announce 1 hour delay, 2 hour delays in the process of trying to get aviation fuel from other marketers.
Which is my
But
point.
then the problem is delays and cancellations are inevitable in aviation. They must happen. That is why the regulations now came into effect that say that if your flight is delayed for upwards of so and so time, it used to be 1 hour, now it is 2 hours, the airline is supposed to serve you refreshment. This is a regulation. They must do that. They must carry their passengers along and go ahead and give them information whenever there is need for that information.
You're telling us what they must do.
I know that they are not doing at the moment.
Exactly. If I can just get the question in, you're telling us what they must do,
okay.
And we are telling you what they have not been doing,
yes.
And we would like to know what you're going to do about it, seeing as it's going on and it's as though it is the consumer's fault that there's no aviation fuel.
Okay. Like yesterday, for instance, we had an issue on an airline going to Accra. All of a sudden, that flight was cancelled around 10 in the night. That airline refused to give passengers accommodation. By regulation, they are supposed to accommodate those passengers since they have cancelled that flight at 10 p.m. and they have already checked in these passengers. They have their boarding passes. They have become their own responsibility, the airline's responsibility. The way the regulations work, you now write a letter of investigation to the airline, which we did today, that says you have done ABC. According to regulations, you have violated, which is a sanctionable offense. So within 7 days, you must give us reasons why you will not be sanctioned. So it has to wait 7 days before we can take any action on that airline. So these things cannot be immediate. We cannot go like, for instance, when an airline fails to give you refreshment and force the hand of the airline to give you refreshment. No. These are sanctionable offenses, they are violations. So we have our own ways in which we now go ahead, sanction these airlines. This is not something that we have to go out to the public, start telling the public that we have sanctioned airline A or airline B or C. This is a normal day-to-day occurrence in aviation, and they happen.
The Director of Consumer Protection of the NCAA, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the news at 10 tonight.
Thank you, John.
But let's just update you now on our lead story on those talks between the federal government and Labour, and the talks between them have ended in a deadlock. At least that's the talks between the Ayuba Waba-led faction of Labour. According to our correspondent, at the venue of the meeting, the NLC delegation to the meeting, led by its president Ayuba Waba, walked out of negotiations following the inability of the two parties to reach an agreement. Mr. Waba thereafter told journalists that the industrial action will hold tomorrow as planned. But remember that we had reported earlier that the Joe Ajero faction of the NLC resolved with the government to set up a committee to resolve agitations over the new pump price of petrol. Mr. Waba thereafter has told journalists that the industrial action will hold tomorrow as planned. Meanwhile, the federal government has said its policy of no work, no pay will prevail. Our former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, has identified lack of commitment and corruption as the bane of the maritime sector in Nigeria. Chief Obasanjo, who was the chairman of a forum held in Lagos to discuss reforms in the maritime sector, says models like the LNG and the Nigeria telecoms industry can be adopted if Nigeria must run a successful national shipping line.
When the organizers of this forum to discuss the future of Nigeria's maritime sector put the picture of former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo as chairman of the occasion, many may have dismissed it as a strategy to woo attendance, more so since it's a Monday morning meeting on Victoria Island. Well, Chief Obasanjo has proved skeptics wrong by attending and early enough, but what is his passion for maritime? A visibly pained former president says he bought 19 ships as national carrier when he was head of state, but all that has vanished into thin air, listing corruption and lack of professionalism as the bane of the maritime in Nigeria.
So wow. There was no commitment. 2, there was no professionalism. 3, there was high level of corruption.
The Minister of Transport, who is the chief host of this program, well attended by professionals and industry players, couldn't agree any less with the former president.
I tell you, if you want to eliminate corruption, computerize the system. If you don't see a human being, will you give him bribe? In the maritime sector, the president has approved for a single window. Yes. And if you introduce a single window, corruption will stop in the marine sector.
A strong regulation regime is key to whatever reforms that may be proposed from the stakeholders' engagement. So what will be done differently?
Nigerians should expect a maritime sector that aligns with their aspirations, that is effective, efficient, a maritime sector that offers limitless opportunities for all our people, that contributes to national economic growth, that serves Nigeria's long-term interest in trade, in commerce, in manufacturing, and in just any area you can think of.
The revenue accruable from a well-run maritime sector is a money spinner anytime. Isn't it just time to roll up sleeves and truly diversify? Hopefully, this dialogue may jumpstart that revolution.
Nigeria needs to spend more on exploration to unlock the potentials in the solid minerals sector, and that's according to the Minister of Solid Minerals, Mr. Kayode Fayemi. The minister said this while appearing before the House of Representatives as part of the ongoing sectoral debate. He also encouraged the House to consider the possibility of ensuring that states benefit from the 13% derivation which is being used in the oil and gas sector.
In 2015, Right Honorable Speaker, Burkina Faso spent $150 million on exploration. Ghana, next door, spent $120 million on exploration. Nigeria in 2015 spent in total $300,000 on exploration. And Nigeria needs to know what it has and in what grades and quantities in order to plan more effectively. So I would plead with this Honourable House to pay particular attention to increasing allocations to exploration activities in order for us to become really serious players in the solid minerals sector. We also need to improve the engagement of states with the minerals and mining sector, particularly around financial participation, around revenue sharing, and recognizing the oversight of federal government. And we believe that one of the critical ways to get this done is to at least, for a start, ensure that states begin to benefit from 13% derivation in the mining sector, as has happened in the oil and gas sector. And we're talking to the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Commission to ensure that this is mainstreamed into the revenue sharing formula in the country.
The Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has nullified the Congress held by a faction of the Southwest Zone of the People's Democratic Party last Saturday in Akure, the Ondo State capital. The trial judge, Justice Ibrahim Buba, held that the Congress cannot stand because it was held in defiance of a restraining order granted by him on May the 11th, 2016. The judge insisted that the court had to firmly stand in support of its own order to prevent litigants from turning court cases into a game of chess. The PDP Southwest Zonal Secretary had on May the 11th, 2016, approached Justice Buba with an ex parte application urging the court to restrain the party from going ahead with the scheduled Congress in the zone. We cross over to the world of business now. Here's Melinda Akinlami.
You first. First Bank.
Thank you so much, Ijoma. Welcome to Business News. A new regulation may soon be introduced to guide the activities of companies that pollute the environment. The Minister of Environment, Amina Mohammed, mentioned this after a meeting with chief executives of some NSE-listed companies today in Lagos. The minister, who spoke in company of the chief executive of the stock exchange, Mr. Oscar Oyema, explains that floating a green bond is one of the plans currently being considered to diversify Nigeria's energy mix.
Done today is just provide a platform to enable the Honorable Minister engage with CEOs of some of our listed companies in the oil and gas sector, in pharmaceutical, in the building, industrials, and in fast-moving consumer goods. And the discussions have been around what are corporates currently doing, what more can they do to plug into the agenda that the Minister laid out for us, and also what kinds of incentives can be presented that would allow, make it very interesting for these corporates to build it into their business models.
What we're saying there is that if we want to diversify the economy, we want to grow it, then how do we make sure that there are less emissions, that we're using cleaner fuel to do it, and that we're addressing some of the challenges that they've put in place that they would need some policy remedies too. And I think for us in environment, working together with colleagues in the cabinet that are sector related, is to say, okay, what are the things we need to do and how should we do them? How much scale are we talking about? And match that up with the kind of investments that we need to make in infrastructure. Ultimately, without the infrastructure, we can't even make these investments in industry and business. So I think today, what are the opportunities to see the proposal and how that is going to work and what we could possibly do to leverage both local and international resources behind the bonds.
In the Nigerian Stock Exchange today, market indicators are in the red in response to profit taking by investors. Bisi Adebayo has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Reports. The local bears slipped back into negative territory after the key broad index lost 0.61% to end Tuesday's session at 26,655.48. Market capitalization stood at 9.17 trillion naira. A total of 386.03 million shares, valued at 2.65 billion naira, in 5,513 deals were exchanged by investors. The volume chart had UBA at the top with 65.76 billion units. Access Bank came next with 55.89 million, while Transco churned out 41.93 million units. Vitafilm, Diamond Bank and Transco all posted losses of over 9% each. Cornwall, Nemeth and Cutix were the day's top three gainers with 9.47%, 5% and 4.43%. That ends the stock market reports. I am Bisi Adebayo.
Thank you so much, Bisi. In Edo State, the government has re-emphasized its commitment to support agribusiness. Governor Adams Oshomole says he will do everything possible to support investors and encourage fresh investment in the agricultural sector. He gave 2 billion naira to 10,000 beneficiaries of the state's micro, small and medium enterprise development fund. It's a mixed bag on the global markets today. U.S. markets has ended trading negative, and it's different shades for Asia, Europe and Africa. And that wraps it up on Business News. Thank you so much for watching. The News at 10 continues in a moment.
You first. First Bank.
Electricity distribution companies in Nigeria say that the industry revenue shortfall has hit 300 billion naira. According to them, this situation has had an adverse effect on the ability of the discos to make critical capital investments for improved service delivery. At a World Press Conference in Lagos today, the discos urged all consumers, governments and their agencies to pay up as the industry cannot survive with this high level of debt. The Executive Director, Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors, also said that shortages of foreign exchange has contributed negatively to the industry's performance.
Representatives of the Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors gathered journalists together in Lagos to address the concerns of their customers. They list some of their key achievements since privatization, to include internal restructuring, improved customer care, introduction of new billing systems, and improved metering system and rollout strategies. They also say they are not responsible for poor power supply.
Each time they vandalize gas pipeline in Niger Delta or anywhere, they are denying the power station the essential gas with which to generate electricity. So shortage of gas leads to low generation. Low generation and poor transmission facilities lead to low distribution. Therefore, discos are not to blame for poor power supply in Nigeria.
Revenue shortfalls of about 300 billion naira, MDA debts of 93 billion naira, and unwillingness of some customers to pay remain some of their major challenges.
There's a place in Abeokuta, Ogun State called Alamala Barracks. Some soldiers led by a major from Alamala Barracks went to a place called Randa to beat up one of our distribution staff. And I have the pictures and everything with huge injury. Up to today, nothing has been done by the military authorities, and we call on the federal government, particularly the president, who is the retired general himself, to call his boys to order. We cannot continue to run a country where the military will be beating our boys when we are only asking them to pay their bill.
The consensus is that partnership is key.
Everybody wants a meter tomorrow, and we want to give you a meter tomorrow. But unfortunately, it's going to take time to be able to, one, have the funds available to do it, the capability to put them in place, the forex in place to be able to actually go and secure the meters.
So what exactly are we doing to make sure, while we are trying to meter people, people are billed reasonably? There's a customer enumeration exercise going on, effectively like a census. So we are now identifying what we call consumers who are not customers and bringing them into our database.
We also need everyone out there to be our eyes and ears. When there's vandalism or theft or bypassing of meters, please report that to us.
The discos have also identified the need to generate more electricity, consistency in regulation, and the need for government to honor the terms of the privatization as solutions going forward.
Still ahead on the news at 10, 31 athletes faced bans from the Rio Games after International Olympics Committee retests samples from the Beijing and London Games. That will be on sports. Just stay with us.